We're talking about my top 10 favorite books of 2025. Get cozy, be ready to geek out with me about these books because I know I'm probably gonna do some gushing. Hello book besties, welcome back to my channel. Today is day 3 of Bookmas, where I post every Monday and Friday in the month of December leading up to Christmas. And today we're gonna yap because we're talking about my top 10 favorite books of 2025. The fact that I made myself, because nobody else made me do it, the fact that I made myself choose 10 out of all of the books that I love this year to talk about with you guys today is so rude of me, honestly, because there were so many great books that I read this year, but we had to narrow it down because I don't have the time to be talking for 15 hours today. Y'all don't have the time to be sat for 15 hours today. We needed to narrow it down to 10. Okay, so we did. It was painful, but we did it. We're just gonna start right off and get into it, okay? Also, can you believe that it's the end of the year? That is insanity, that it is already almost Christmas. Crazy. I feel like this year flew by. Get cozy, be ready to geek out with me about these books because I know I'm probably gonna do some gushing. Let me first say that this list is not 1 to 10. Like, there's no order in which I love these. There are a couple that are God tier compared to the rest. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with my basic top 10 leading up to the ones on my God tier list, okay? Because those are still in my top 10 of the year, but they're just elevated, they're better. These were all 5 stars, every single one of them. Some of them were 6 stars, like I said, but regardless, I recommend every single one of these with my entire being, with my whole soul. We're gonna start out with Heavenly Bodies by Amarna Iriu. This was one of the first books that I read in 2025, and it was one of my favorites. That's crazy. I do think that I read this at the perfect time for me to love it as much as I do. You know what? I didn't even tell you what it's about. So if you don't know what it's about, it is a romantasy and it has celestial magic. Basically, our FMC, she is royalty, and she ends up having to flee her home because one of the stars has come and decided to destroy everything and wants her because there's a prophecy that says she'll fall for a star and it will kill them both. And she's like, I don't want that. So she flees and she runs to their enemy kingdom. And there, the prince from that kingdom, he trains her. Okay, Prince Enzo. That's the basis of the story. This was very fun. It was banter filled. It is pure romantasy. If someone asked me for a romantasy book, this is the book that I would point at. Now, I do think if you go into it thinking that it's going to be higher fantasy than it is, you're going to be disappointed. But I loved it. The ending of this book, diabolical. And Fallen Stars just came out, so I am very excited to read that. I am ready to giggle and kick my feet again. But for a first book in a series to be a 5-star, crazy, which is actually the case with a couple of these on this list. If you haven't read it yet and you want a fun giggle, kick your feet time, highly recommend. The next one on this list is going to be Exorcism of Fairies by J.L. Vampa. Now, y'all know I love my gothic books. I love gothic atmospheres. It is everything to me. I think I say that in every single video just about. This is dark academia. It's professor student. It's spooky gothic. It's a little bit folklory. It's everything, and I love it. It's very beautifully written too. In this one, our FMC, she's the daughter of, what are they called? Morticians? I think it's morticians, yeah. The people who like take bodies apart, like funeral homes, that kind of stuff. Words are hard today. This takes place in 1990s Dublin and there's a plague going around. Nobody knows why people are dying, what's happening. They can't figure it out. They can't fix it. She has been giving bodies. Yeah, you heard me. She's been giving literal bodies to this group, this organized group at this college. And they are trying to figure out what is wrong with the bodies. A lot of different people are actually trying to figure out what's wrong. And while she's at this college, because she is a student there, but she's older. So she's an older FMC. I think she's like 28. While she's at the school, she ends up having to take a TA job for this broody professor of, I think he's the professor of some kind of folklore. I can't remember exactly what it's called, the class that he teaches, but it's basically like he knows a lot about the fae, the myths, the folklore, everything. So there's a lot going on there. This book is so romantic and it's like gothic whimsical. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. There's now going to be another book and I'm very excited for that. This one wrapped up really nicely. It was supposed to be a standalone. J.L. Vampa decided to continue on and I can't wait. I can't wait. She writes gothic atmospheres very, very well. And I love this. I actually read this on Kindle. I just love this copy so much and I didn't want to ruin it. Also, look at this fan art. Hello, not really fan. I mean, I guess it's fan art. She got a commission for the book. Are you kidding me? Hello? I loved it so much. If you like gothic, spooky atmospheres, I think you'll like this book. Another first book in a series. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. I'm sorry. If you've been here for any amount of time, you knew it was coming. Direbound by Sable Sorensen. I ate this up. This book is thick. This is romantasy, and this is one of the slowest burns. I cannot wait for book 2. I cannot wait for book 2. So basically in this one, Marin, our FMC, her little sister is kidnapped. There have been children going missing. Someone is kidnapping children and nobody knows who it is. And so she, when her little sister is kidnapped, she's like, I need to join the army so that I can get to the front lines and go, because they know where the children are essentially going. But she's like, I need to get to the front lines so I can get to my sister and rescue her. But whenever she does go to join the army, it turns out it is on the most most inopportune time for her because the bonding trials are taking place and she has to participate. She doesn't have a choice at this point. The bonding trials are basically whenever this entire group of people scales up the side of a mountain and there are dire wolves at the top. And if a dire wolf chooses to bond with you and you choose to bond with a dire wolf, then it's done. And then you have to go through all of these trials with your dire wolf and prove your connection and make it stronger and all of these things. And she doesn't want that. She doesn't want that. But what happens whenever she gets up there? Read it and find out. Like I said, the slow burn, it's actually taking years off my life. So I cannot wait for book 2, Fury Bound, whenever it comes out in 2026. It's going to be so good. I know it's going to be so good. Next book that we are going to talk about today is, in fact, Blood Over Bright Haven by ML Wang. I still haven't figured that out. Somebody tell me how you pronounce her last name. This one took me by surprise. I had a feeling that I would like it. I did not know that it would stick with me like it did. This was an easy choice for my top 10 reads of the year. I think this magic system was so cool. It's essentially magical typewriters and it's very like science focused. They use a magical typewriter and pull the magic from somewhere and can basically do all kinds of things with it. But not everybody has access to the magic. Only the elite essentially do. And our FMC is the first woman permitted to this magic university, the High Magistry. So she has a lot to prove, right? But things are not always that they seem at the top. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I will say the message of this book that it left me with, and I say it every single time that I am talking about this book because it is such an important message to talk about. It does not matter how good you want to be, how good you think you are. If you do not actually go out and do good, if you do not leave an impression of good or a lasting effect, it doesn't matter. It's basically saying performative activism, it's not good enough. You have to actually preform. You have to actually do something. You have to make a change. That really stuck with me and I loved it. I also think that this was a very real parallel to the world that we live in now, and that is heartbreaking. I don't know why those kinds of books stick with me more than any other whenever I can see bits and pieces of our world and what we are going through in a book, and I loved it. The ending of this book made me stare at a wall, and that is how I know that it's a 5-star book. If it makes me stare at a wall and question my existence and make me want to actively change things that I'm doing in my life to be better. This is a masterpiece. I love it so much. I love it so much that I got a special edition. Next, we have one that actually took me by surprise. I did not expect to you know what? Basically all of these, no, not all of them, that's a lie. But this one did take me by surprise. Bailey, shut up and talk about the book. It's Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. I also want to mention book 2, Princess of Blood. I didn't bring it out because these books are heavy. All of the books that I was carrying, and I did it in one go because I am a 1-trip queen. I'm not a 2-trip queen unless it's groceries because I will drop everything, actually. That doesn't matter. We're talking about books right now. This was such a good fantasy romance. This gave me the same exact vibes of like a fantasy romance that I would have read whenever I was a kid and loved, except elevated. It's more adult. It's so good. So basically our FMC Kenna, and Kenna, by the way, one of my favorite FMCs of the entire year. I adore her, but she lives in the human towns and her town borders the forest, basically the bog, and then the Feylands are on the other side. Okay, so her town is the closest to the Feylands. Well, she likes to go into the bog and basically fish for trinkets, okay? And at the very beginning of this book, she finds this dagger that is beautiful and she's like, I can sell this and get me and my best friend a better life. But it just so happens that that day is the day where it is tradition in the human town for a couple of humans to get chosen to go to the Fey realms, to be like gifts, if you will. It's like an honor, whatever. They've gaslit everyone into thinking it's an honor. Well, her best friend gets chosen and she's like, not on my watch. She's not gonna survive. And she doesn't trust the Fey. She doesn't trust that it's a honor to go into the Fey land because no one ever hears from anyone again, right? She's like, no, I said we were gonna get out of here. We're gonna get out of here. And so she goes in after her friend and these other girls going across the bog to the Feylands. And she's like, hey, you can't do this. We need to leave. And she's like, this is an honor, you know, whatever. Anywho, she ends up in the Feylands, our FMC Kenna, and she ends up getting placed as a handmaiden to one of the Fey houses. And she has to help the princess of this Fey house go through these trials so that the princess can essentially level up. Kenna is so intelligent. I really liked her. And I really liked this book. And I need book 3 because the way that book 2 ended, I don't know where we're gonna go from here. I really don't. You should read this if you want something that is the same but different. Trials done in a different way. It's not in the recycled way that we've seen. I really liked it. And then we have The Magnificence of Death by Ray Rainwater. This is one that really took me by surprise. I did not expect to love this. I didn't really know much about it. And I went into it with a very open mind. This is an indie published book and it turned out to be one of my favorites. One of my favorites of the year, you guys. When I say that this is a very beautiful, yearning filled love story, story. I mean it. If you liked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but you wanted it to be different, you'll know what I mean if you've read that book. I think you're gonna love this, okay? This broke my heart, shattered it, and put it back together. So basically our FMC in this book, Astoria, she comes from a line of cursed women. They've been cursed for a very, very long time. And whenever they hit 20 years old, that's when the curse kicks in. And it's different for every single woman in her family. Astoria's power, her curse, if you will, is that she cannot die. She is immortal. She has to watch every single person in her life die, and she gets to live on. So she's like essentially a vampire without having to have blood in order to keep her going. After all of the books on immortality that I'm reading this year, you couldn't pay me for that. That sounds like a nightmare. She also gets a little bit of an extra power, and that messes with the balance of life and death. So Death himself has a problem with her, and he has been coming after her for years to try to convince her to let him help her break the curse so that he doesn't have to keep cleaning up messes. He is broody and tortured and emo, and she is also broody and tortured and emo. I just love this book so much. It has such lyrical prose, and it is so beautiful and tragic at the same time, and I think everybody should read it. I think everybody should read it. And the cover, once you read the book, you will understand the cover that much more, and I love it so much. Now this one is the last regular 5-star, and then we're gonna get into my God tier of the year, which is crazy that I have multiple God tiers of the year. 3 to be precise. Insanity. We have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Don't pay attention to the stickers. I know I need to take them off. I just haven't. Everybody says toxic lesbian vampires. I even say toxic lesbian vampires, but I also always say it is way more than that. This book follows 3 different women, and it shows the effects that immortality have on every single one of them and how it can be corruptive. Every single one of these people that are the main characters in the book, the 3 women, they all started out one way and they kept their core being with the immortality, but it got corrupted somewhere along the way, and they changed, and it changed who they are. And it really just goes to show you that living forever really isn't all it's cracked up to be, and that love can be very toxic and lonely when immortality is involved. I loved this. V.E. Schwab's writing style is always and always has been beautiful. She's one of those authors that you read something that she writes and it makes you stop and think, what does that line mean to me? Why am I stuck on that? You know what I mean? And I love that about her writing style. I loved this book. It really talks about toxic relationships and how if you don't break the cycle, it can keep happening over and over again. I loved it so much. It was 5 stars. It was perfect. And now we're getting into the God tier. Now this first one had been sitting on my shelf for I don't know how long, and that is, I'm still so mad at myself for that. That's crazy of me to do that. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I was terrified of this book for so long because it's very mixed feelings on it. People either love it or they hate it. I haven't seen anyone in between. I have made this book a part of my entire personality. I tabbed the hell out of it. Laura got me a special edition for my birthday, which is one of my most prized possessions now. Now, a lot of people think the FMC in this is super annoying. She is traumatized. She's traumatized, and that is why she is the way that she is. There is a glossary at the beginning of this book. I've said this before, if you are going to pick this up, I highly recommend, you don't need to read the entire glossary, but at least look at how the time works. I feel like everything else you can kind of fill in the blanks, go back to the glossary if you want to while you're reading, but all you really need to know to understand certain things in this book, in my opinion, is how the time works, okay? Their time works completely different. It's a whole new world. If you are expecting something like Fourth Wing, you're going to be disappointed. This is not like Fourth Wing at all. So our FMC is a part of this rebellion group, okay? And her job in this rebellion group is assassin. That's her day job, okay? You know, she gets paid to kill people. And so the Crown decides, and hires a bounty hunter to take out members of the Fleur du Ath, and that is the group that she is a part of. So she finds herself in a bit of a pickle. Meanwhile, there is also a very broody, huge man who is on the search for something. Okay, his name is Khan, and he is everything. When I tell you that Rave is one of my favorite FMCs of all time, I mean it. One of the most romantic gestures I have ever read in a book, seen in a movie, whatever, is in this book. When I tell you that this man is down bad, and I love them so much. This took me by surprise. I did not expect to love it as much as I did, and I am obsessed with it. I cannot wait for the next book. It's coming out soon now, thank God, because I need it. I need it now. We have 2 books left, and I need to hydrate. Now we're gonna talk about Red Rising. This is a series that I genuinely, and I know I keep saying this, guys, but I genuinely did not think I was going to love this as much as I did. I am not surprised that I loved a sci-fi, seeing as all the other girls that I was friends with growing up had posters of like famous singers and movie stars and all of that stuff. I had a poster of Anakin Skywalker and Daddy Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. That is how much I loved Star Wars growing up, so it's not shocking to me that I would love a sci-fi series. Not shocking, but did shock me. I just hadn't dabbled in sci-fi yet, and I feel like this was the perfect starting point for me. I read the original trilogy and Iron Gold this year. I am going to continue the series. I probably won't continue it until the new year because I don't feel like being depressed around Christmas time. This series takes place on multiple different planets, okay? And the one that we are on in Red Rising is Mars. There is also a color ranking system of people that this whole world and these books have made. You are ranked by your colors. So like golds are the ones at the top. They rule over everything. They're stronger, they're faster, they're more powerful, whatever. The reds are at the very, very bottom. Darrow, our MMC, he is a red. And something happens at the beginning of this book and he ends up having to infiltrate the golds. That's all I'm going to say. That was a really bad example of what the series is about, but I feel like it's so much that it's so hard to explain. I loved this series so much. These characters are now some of my favorite characters of all time. Severo, Ragnar, Darrow, Victra, Mustang, I love them. I love them so much. They are everything to me. I still think about them. There are so many different themes in this book. It's going to make you feel so many emotions. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you feel like you are a part of something. And I love that feeling. I loved that. It has since become one of my favorites of all time. And I can't wait to finish the series, but I'm also very, very scared because Dark Age is apparently very, very, very dark and there are zero happy moments and I am so terrified of that. So, but Red Rising, if you were thinking about reading it, I think you should read it. I think you should. It's God tier. And don't be scared. The first trilogy, so fast paced. The final book in my top 10 of the year, this is a God tier book for me. And I know y'all been waiting for it to come, okay? It is Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu. This book changed me as a human being. It did the same thing that Blood Over Brighthaven did. It wove its way into me and now I am changed forever. I could not put this book down. This was heartbreaking. It was tragic. It was beautiful. This was a direct reflection, like I said, just like Blood Over Brighthaven, of the world that we live in now. If you want to know what the perfect example of an actual morally black human is, it is Cain Farron. When I say morally black, I mean, I would sacrifice the world for you. Not, I would sacrifice you for the world. And Helena is one of my favorite FMCs of the entire year. She is one of the most intelligent FMCs I have ever read about. The things that that woman could do with her mind alone is insane. Basically in this one, Helena was a part of a resistance group that lost the war. They lost the war and she is the only surviving member of that group. Well, she was caught and the leader of the group that won wants to know what is inside her brain, wants to know if there are any other members out there. There are things in her mind that people want to know. She doesn't remember anything that happened for a good chunk of the war and the end of it. She doesn't know how she ended up where she is, whatever. So in order to get those memories out, they put her with the High Reeve, Cain Farron. She is staying at his estate with him and his wife. He has to do things to get into her mind. It is dark, it is gritty, it is heartbreaking, but it is also beautiful. There are 3 different parts and you will feel all of the emotions in all 3, but I swear, once you know what's actually going on, it hurts that much more. The web that Sen Lin Yu weaved, just amazing. It talks a lot about real issues that we deal with and it makes you take a step back and really think about the things that are going on. And I loved it. I loved it so much. This is God tier. This is perfection. I literally would not change a thing. Yes, she's thick. I don't care. I would have read more pages than this. That was a lot of books. That was a lot of yapping, but that is my top 10 favorite books of the entire year. That is crazy. That is insane that I narrowed that down, and it is crazy that we are already at the end of the year. Now I want to know, what are your favorite books of the year? What is the book that will not leave your brain, that you cannot stop thinking about, that is just your 6-star read of the year? I want to know. That's going to be it for today, but don't forget that I am posting every Monday and Friday leading up for Christmas. That is 7 days of Bookmas from me, and I am having the most fun with this. I love you guys so, so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see y'all on Friday.